I think I saved a girl last night. So, not much of a writer, but I'll try my best. Story time. Yesterday I had a crappy day and was required to work extra hours. We just changed our time zone 1 hour, so it was already dark when I left my workplace. I was pretty stressed out and was just driving my usual route when I noticed this girl on a dark street just texting, basically just waiting the light to cross the street, and I just think, this is a shitty and dark place to be. Who the fuck is just there texting in the dark like that? That's when I turned my face and noticed a guy, like 50 feet away from her, just staring at her. I was about to go on my way when I noticed that he was just eating her with his eyes. That's when it hit me. Oh fuck, bad news. So I just park my car the next street and run back where the girl was before. So when I turn on the corner, I notice the girl forcing and pushing the guy away while screaming. I sprint as fast as I could and scream, "Hey fucker! Leave her alone!" The guy turned, saw me, pushed her aside, and ran like crazy. I started to chase him and noticed that he dropped a knife in the street while running. So I turned back to the girl and asked if she was okay. After she calmed down, she told me that he stole her phone. Told her that it was just a valuable and didn't matter that much. She was waiting for her boyfriend, so when he arrived, I explained the situation. I shook hands and left. So much for a crappy night. So, dude who assaulted naive girls, let's not meet. One night stand. Hey guys, this is my first time posting here, so here goes. This event happened to me this spring 2015. So I'm a young adult male living in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I joined a fairly popular BDSM website mid-January and was instantly drawn into the community. For those of you who don't know, BDSM is a variety of erotic practices including bondage, dominance, submission, and other things. Think 50 Shades of Grey if that helps. The community welcomes all kinks and fetishes alike, and everyone I've ever met from that site have been very welcoming and friendly. Except for one. It all started with me coming across her profile. She was a gorgeous woman, very fit with long legs and firm breasts. She was an older woman, but I was into that. I started by browsing her collection of photos, mostly fairly vanilla images of her sitting at a dining room table, drinking a glass of wine and smiling at the camera. Real classy, which just urged me to forward. I went ahead and messaged her. I wrote the usual greetings and offered to chat and to get to know each other. She replied almost instantly. She greeted me as "Sir," given the role I take. We continued to message back and forth for a week or two. She explained to me that she wanted me to be her master, since the last master died in a car accident. This was odd to me, but unfortunate accidents can happen to anyone, right? She continued giving me details of what she wanted me to do to her, and I very much obliged. The next couple of days, we kept trying to meet up for coffee, but unfortunately, she had to cancel last minute each time. Eventually, I began getting very eager, as all the kinky discussions have got me worked up. So late one night, she messages me inviting me over to her place. She explained to me that she doesn't work in the morning, so we can be up all night having our fun. While being so worked up and lacking the necessary blood flowing to my brain to make an educated decision, I agreed and asked for her address. She messaged me an address along with a phone number she said was her home line, and I got ready to head out. So I got into my car and plugged the address into my GPS. This is where I noticed she lived in Hamilton, which is about a 45-minute drive away from Toronto. It's currently 1 a.m. in the morning, but this didn't bother me as I drove to Hamilton quite often, and considering I'd be spending the night, I could just leave in the morning. 45 minutes later, I found myself passing Hamilton. Okay, so it's a little further than that, no big deal. But then, I reached a stretch of highway void of streetlights. This is where I start to get concerned, as I only had my own headlights lighting my way. Suddenly, my GPS chimed in with the female voice indicating my exit. It was coming up on the right, and I feared driving into the darkness off the mild comfort of the highway. The exit took me into a long, dark stretch of country road. My red lights started going off as I passed silhouettes of farmhouses and forestry, a good distance between each of them. My GPS chimed again, indicating that my destination was coming up on the left. But as I approached the location, it was not even close to what I expected. It was a small church house with one yellow streetlight illuminating the dirt lot in front of it. I pulled into the lot and took a closer look with my vehicle's headlights pointing at the building. The windows and doors were boarded up, and definitely not recently, as the wood seemed weather-worn. My blood began to run cold as I made sure my doors were locked and my windows rolled up. The full tank of gas gave me some kind of comfort in this whole situation. I figured she possibly made an error in typing out her address and called a number she gave me. Error noise. The number you are trying to reach is no longer in service. Okay, at this point, I'm ready to turn and leave until I notice my phone alerting me that I have an email. It was a message from her. Hey, I see you there. It's not the church. My place is a small house behind the church. All I could do is replay all the horror movies I've seen throughout my life, and I just couldn't believe I could possibly be living one out in real life. However, a small jolt of curiosity persuaded me forward, even if to just take a look at this house. There was a small path beside the church, and I slowly pulled up into it. As I crept forward in my car, a small little farmhouse poked itself out of the trees at the top of the hill. At this point, I was certain I'm not going in there. I've made the decision in my head that my own survival took precedency over my need for sex. I was about to reverse out of there until I saw the upstairs balcony door open. A hooded figure stepped out. I couldn't see their face, but I could tell by the posture and shape that it was a man. Despite the darkness of his facial features, I could tell he was looking directly at me. He stood there for about 30 seconds before he motioned his head in a way I recognized as the universal signal for "look behind you." Just then, I felt the metal handle of the outside of my driver door being tugged at. I quickly turned my head in that direction to see the woman from the profile photos, hunched over and pressing her face up against the window. My heart leapt out of my chest as I stared at her horrifying smile. The best way I can describe her expression would be any creepy cartoon image of the Joker you've ever seen. It was undoubtedly her behind that insane grin, only much older. She whispered through the glass, "Open the door, baby." I froze in my seat, unsure of how to respond or what to do next, so I just sat there continuing to stare at her like an idiot. Her face then quickly fell into an angry, malicious expression as she continued to violently jiggle at the door handle. She then yelled at the top of her lungs, "Open the door now!" This knocked me into panic mode, and I pressed my foot to the gas. My car, set to reverse, began to pull out of the pathway backwards. The woman tried holding onto the door handle, only to let go shortly after being dragged off her feet. I flew down the dark road back towards the highway. It was almost triple the speed limit, just in case they had a car themselves and decided to chase me, right? I called a friend of mine who I also met on the same website. She also lived in Hamilton and insisted I come stay the night at her place. When I got there, she poured me a cold glass of Coke Zero as I explained to her what happened. She told me that she read an article in the local paper over a week ago regarding an older couple luring men out to their farm. I stopped her right there, as I didn't want to be freaked out even more than I currently was. So, you crazy potential murderous woman, let's never meet. Getting drugged made for the scariest night of my life. I was 22 years old and was in a pretty volatile relationship. My ex, Mike, had moved in with me a few months prior after the death of his mother, and things got a little too serious too fast. We were both young and dumb, living in LA, and always looking for the next thrill, and it caused way too much problems in our relationship. After one particularly bad fight, Mike moved out while I was at work one day, down to stay with a friend, John, in San Diego. Now, Mike was a little bit younger than me, 20 at the time, but John, he was in his 40s. They had been friends for a few years, and John had an extra bedroom, so I didn't think much of it. Flash forward a few weeks, Mike and I are talking about trying to get together. He comes up and stays with me for a few days. Then I decide to go stay in San Diego at John's house for the night, because I had some work in San Diego early the next morning anyways. This was only the second time I met John. The first time just being a brief encounter at my work. He seemed like a normal, down-to-earth guy, and we actually had a bit in common. At the time, I was a raw foodist, and he was interested in it as well, so he prepared us a long, big raw dinner. From what I remember, everything was delicious. After dinner, we all sat down to watch a movie, and John asked us if we wanted anything to drink. At that moment, I forget what Mike said. I just said I wanted a single Coronita, the tiny Corona bottles, and that's all I drank that night, besides for an unopened water bottle at dinner. During the course of the movie, John asked Mike and I if we wanted to go out and smoke some of his hookah. I wasn't interested, and I remember John getting really pushy about it. I never gave in, and I remember him being visibly agitated. So, we finished the movie, hang out for a bit, and decide to call it a night. First though, John insisted that we hit his pipe with him. At the time, I was a pretty avid smoker, and he was pretty insistent, so I figured I'd maybe have a hit or two, and then Mike and I could retire to the bathroom. Mike hit it first, and immediately fell to the ground, coughing his lungs up. He was a pretty big smoker too, but I figured that he must have just hit it too hard, or got it down the wrong pipe. No biggie, I went for my hit too, and the same thing happened to me. I remember running into the other room, falling on the floor, and just coughing uncontrollably. The whole time John is laughing and offering up another hit. He still hasn't taken one yet. At that moment, I immediately felt that something isn't right, and persuade Mike that it's time for us to go to bed. As we go to our rooms, John leaves us with a creepy, "I'll see you guys later." That line has always stuck with me. I locked the door, noticing that it had a key slot to open it on the outside. Mike and I lay down and immediately fell asleep. Flash forward, I can't even tell you how long. and I wake up feeling that something isn't right, and I start freaking out. I had the most intense and horrifying hallucinations, and I finally realized what was going on. We had been drugged, and I was gonna end up killing somebody that night. I looked down at Mike, and he was pale as a ghost and barely breathing. He wouldn't wake up, and he wouldn't give me any signs of consciousness, just a few shallow breaths. Two things crossed my mind at the moment. One, that I had to call for help, and two, that if that door opened, I was gonna grab the night lamp and bludgeon someone to death. With my luck, my phone was almost dead, something like 5%, and I did not have a charger with me. I found Mike's phone, and it had a lot more charge, so perfect, I thought, as I dialed 911. The only problem was, I had no idea where we were. Using GPS on my phone and directions from Mike to get to the house, and I could not fully coherently explain to the 911 dispatcher what was going on. Somehow, I was able to pull up the GPS on my phone real quick and get the address before my phone shut off. I explained well enough what happened, that the dispatcher finally sent out cops and paramedics to the house. The house we were staying at was a duplex, and we were on the second story, so there was a front door that was locked to get into the duplex. You had to walk up a set of stairs to get to John's place, and then he had his front door locked as well. Mike and I were in the second bedroom, and I had that door locked too. After I don't know how long, the cops came and pounded on the front door. As I said, it was locked. I looked out the window and begged for them to help us, begged for them to just break down the door since John would not answer. Finally, they broke down the front door of the duplex, and that's when John used his key to unlock the bedroom door, jump on the bed, and start choking Mike, yelling, "How could you do this to me?" The whole thing probably only lasted a few seconds, even though, at the time, it seemed like an eternity. Eventually, the cops broke down the front door of the apartment and came barging in. I don't remember the specifics, but I don't remember if John had left the bedroom before the cops came in, or if the cops had to pull him out. Long story short, Mike and I were taken by ambulance to the ER. He had some ridiculously high heart rate, but extremely shallow breathing. I was surprisingly alright, albeit extremely paranoid. We were both drug tested, and the doctors found PCP and GHB in our blood systems. I tried to explain that we were drugged, but since there was no proof that we didn't intentionally take the drugs, and since I think I admitted I had a beer and a toke of weed, the cops just assumed that we were druggies. Nothing happened to John. He lied and said that whatever we took, we did it ourselves, and even tried to say that he found an empty bottle of cough syrup by my bed, and we must have ingested that as well. We were in the ER for a few hours, and it was the scariest night of my life. I was hallucinating to the point where I thought I was being kidnapped, and that the hospital was just a setting for a snuff film. Mike was tied down and shot up with whatever they used to calm him down, and I absolutely refused to let them give me any medication. They let us go early the next morning, while it was still dark out, and I remember walking around aimlessly, having no clue where we were since neither of us had our phones at this point, and trying to just find a hotel. Mike was out of it the whole time, and most of the next day, and to this day, he still does not remember any of this happening. A few weeks later, I was talking to a friend who lived down in San Diego, and he used to be John's personal assistant. John admitted to him that he drugged us and what his plans were. Even joked about how he does it to little kids all the time. I tried to follow up with the police, but again, no proof. Nothing came of it. He told my friend that he put GHB, commonly used as a date rape drug, into our beers, and that weed, which he didn't smoke any of, was laced with PCP, extreme hallucinogen. I can't explain to you how scary that combination of drugs were. GHB is basically to calm you down and become very complacent and forgetful. PHP, on the other hand, is a hallucinogen that has been known to make people go on into superhuman and batshit crazy stuff. Imagine being in a half-drug stupor, having the most realistic and scary hallucinations play over and over in your mind. So, John, you creepy child rapist, let's not meet, because you're the only person in the world I would kill without a second thought.